Welcome back to The Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and sometimes life's most profound missions begin in our darkest hours. And today's guest has turned personal loss into a beacon of hope for veterans and four-legged friends alike. Susan Ames is the heart and vision behind Stars and Stripes Dog Rescue, a nonprofit that only saves dogs from euthanasia, but also gives veterans a trusted partner on their path to healing. After losing her son, Dustin, Susan found herself standing at a crossroads, searching for meaning in an unimaginable grief. Instead of closing off, she built bridges between people and animals, heartbreak and hope, isolation and community. What makes Susan's work so remarkable isn't just her commitment to rescue, it's how she creates genuine opportunity for transformation on both ends of the leash. By empowering veterans to train their own dogs as emotional support or service animals, Susan has crafted programs that honor recovery as a shared journey, reinforced by her unique wellness kits that foster healing for both human and canine alike. Her story, shaped by collaboration, advocacy, and an unshakable belief in new beginnings, reminds us all that purpose can bloom even from pain. Today, Susan joins us to share her insights on courage, connection, and the enduring bonds that move us forward. So let's dive into her incredible journey and discover how hope truly thrives in partnership. Susan, it's been a long time coming. I've pushed this off a couple of times. You've been sick a couple of times, but here we are, finally getting the opportunity to sit down and record and bring light to what you're doing and share your story. So I'm so grateful to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate this opportunity. And to start out, thank you very much for your service.
Yeah, of course. Let's dive right in. Usually, first question for veterans: where'd you grow up and what inspired you to join? But for you, it's a little bit different. So let's just dive right into it. Where did you grow up? What shaped your journey, and how did you get into the work that you're doing with Stars and Stripes Dog Rescue?
Actually, I live in California, but I was born and raised in the Midwest in Wisconsin, farm country. Yeah, I was one of those kids that was born in the wrong place. Love and being from the Midwest, I think it's a great place to raise your kids. But
I
for
agree.
me, being stereotyped as a female, and I'm not one of those, women should be this or the DEI, and I didn't really want to get into all that. But probably dating myself. But back in the day, um, I just wasn't destined to become a farmer's wife or be put pigeonholed in a role that I was never meant to be. So actually, a girlfriend and I, after we got out of school, she had 12 brothers and sisters, a typical farm family.
That's
So
so many.
it's
So
a
many.
lot. I mean,
So
by
many.
today's standards, it's crazy, but back then it was pretty common because you needed people to help milk all those cows and
Yeah,
take care of all the farm animals. And the one thing I remember coming from that Midwestern background is work ethic. Treating people with respect, being around animals, being around animals, I think is kind of what it took me a while to get here, but I think it was one of those things that I was destined to work with animals. Namely dogs. Although a lot of what we work with, you can do with pretty much any animal. It's more about the human than the animal. But anyway, we took off and went to visit all of our brothers and sisters who lived in various states. And keep in mind, I'm farm country. I mean, talk about being doe-eyed and it's just crazy. What do you mean? There's snow, that kind of thing. I shouldn't say snow. There's tons of snow, but it's more like the beach, right?
right.
Most of the common thing when I actually ended up out here, people would always ask, can you surf? And I'm like, we live in Sacramento. There's no ocean here. You need to drive a distance. Um, so we did. We traveled in Florida, you name it, and I ended up out here, and I never wanted to go home. I just didn't. I knew I was supposed to be doing something else. So 30 some odd years later, here I am. I was lucky enough in my career. I worked in technology, and I ran into a lot of really friendly bosses. And being sarcastic. These were typical men that women have their place and your place isn't here. So I worked for software companies that we installed computer systems for newspapers and publishing companies. And as you might imagine, back then there was male dominated, and so I had a boss who believed that he could out win me as far as make me quit. And what he didn't know about farm country is we're tough. You
Yeah.
throw anything at us and we fight through it. And he gave me all the shit jobs, right? I mean, I've seen more of the less desired places in the United States than anybody could ever want to see. And it made me stronger because I fought through it, and I found that through working and talking to people, I would win them over. And I keep telling people, I could have been a billionaire 5 times over with all the harassment suits, but I didn't see it as harassment. I saw it as, okay, here's a challenge. How do I get through it versus whining and crying because somebody said something inappropriate to me, right? And the
Well, I
reason I
also
bring that
think
up
too
is,
there's an element of seeing the worst places. So I saw some of the worst places in the United States when I was selling insurance, right? So
oh,
I know these places that you're talking about, and at least for me, what it really did was give me a lot more perspective on, because look, everybody's journey is different. Everybody comes from different places. I too grew up in farm country in southern Indiana, so it's very much the same as how you grew up
Mhm.
in Wisconsin. Farms everywhere. The reason I joined the Army is to get out of there. I wasn't going to be a farmer. I was going to work on somebody else's farm. I was going to detassel corn and plant and milk cows and shovel turkey shit and all of that for the rest of my life. It just didn't. I knew the world was a bigger place. However, until you actually get out and experience it, you don't have that perspective. You just live in this little bubble. So what you're talking about, while it might have been shit jobs or you could have been seen as harassment because you're a woman getting put into these positions, I think it built a vision and a perspective that you may not have gotten elsewhere, but it also built resilience in yourself as well.
Exactly. And it's kind of ironic in a lot of ways that, and I see that in society today when people complain about, how it is to live here in the United States and how wrong this is. It's like, have you ever left either where you are today, or I've been really lucky to travel the world. I mean, I've been to every continent but two. There's not a lot going on in Antarctica.
It's cold. Fuck
It,
that.
it is. But even in that environment, I learned that everybody does. They put you in a box, and but I fought my way through it, and I have so many friends from all over the world. But you know, as I finally got a date, because when I traveled a lot, it's hard to meet people and know that they're going to be there when you're back in 3 weeks, right? So I finally settled down, got married, had 2 kids, and I always taught them. And it was really funny because my husband is from California, and um, has that kind of, you would think that being from California, you have a big open mind about everything. And me being from farm country, it was like, no, that's not the way things should work. We kind of switched personalities, the way of thinking, but that was because of my travels and realizing that when you go to other countries, and again, I'm not trying to put, pontificate about this or that, but it's just my vision. When you go to other countries, some countries didn't have things in English, and you had to have somebody that could translate for you. And I didn't put myself in a position where they need to do things my way. I learned how to behave in those countries. Whereas people here in the United States, if you haven't been out of the country or even going to a different state, you learn a lot of things are different in the South versus, up in Montana, for example. And I think when you're out and about, you see people for who they are, not what they are, and why that's important, especially my work working with veterans, is you may not see physically what's going on with them, but deep down there's something going on. And as you work with them and their dogs, you start seeing that the crack that they have starts opening up. And then all of a sudden there's a transition, right? There's a transition from being closed-minded, and closed-minded from them, just they don't want to seem weak. And a lot of that comes from the military, which you need. In the military, you need this. You need the toughness. You need follow the orders. You need all of that. You need the structure. So coming out of that environment, I see a lot of these men and women, if they don't have a support system, and even some of those who do, they don't, the family unit, the support unit is so different, and they don't know how to deal with it. And that's why some of them don't do as well as others. But you can't see that. If you just look at them, you can't see that. And I can't tell you how many guys I've met that look like you, right? Big burly guys that look a little shady, and they have these small dogs. One story is I was at a veterans event, and this guy came up, and he looked like a motorcycle guy, right? Leather vest, beard, shaggy, and he had this I think it was like, it looked like a piece of fur, like right here in his collar. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm watching, I'm like, that's kind of weird, right? All of a sudden it moves. This thing's like moving. I'm like, what the heck? It ended up being a Pomeranian, and his little buddy, he talked to it, and it calmed him. And that's when you start realizing that animals, whether they're, you know, uh, lizards or whatever, you'd be surprised what some of these men and women carry around as their go-to. Um, you start realizing that they're nothing's the same. Everybody's an individual. They have different kind of dogs used for different kind of purposes. So that was kind of eye-opening to me. And what started this is my son Dustin was in the Air Force, and it was really funny because he had gone to school, graduated. I was one of those moms that said, no, you need to leave the nest. I wanted him to see the world, and I didn't want him to think that in California everybody's like this, right? And what many people don't realize is that in Northern California, we are not like any other parts of the state.
Nope.
We are fairly conservative for the most part. We still have the crazies like everybody does, but when there's voting going on, we tend to be kind of pushed off to the side. Our vote really, it matters, but it doesn't matter because of all the other things we have going on. And a lot of us are not happy with what's happening and haven't been happy, and so people are leaving left and right.
For several decades, a lot of you in Northern
Oh yeah,
California haven't
this
been
is not
happy,
a
and
new thing.
it's a very old thing. I'd say for
Mhm.
probably 40 plus years. I've got a lot of Army buddies that live in Northern California, and they really, truly, I've heard it my whole life. I have my thoughts on California, but the sentiment coming out of Northern California is they are destroying such a beautiful state.
That is very true. And right now, there's not a lot you can do about it except for hold steady because,
Mhm.
like the pendulum works, it's going to switch back here eventually. But because we have so many veterans, especially up in El Dorado Hills, we call the foothills, going up that way, where a lot of the veterans go to be away from people. We have a lot of I wouldn't call them totally homeless because they're making the choice to be out in the wilderness, but there's not a lot of services up there.
Mhm.
So when we started this rescue, and kind of going back to talk about my son, he was one of those kids that, when you're a parent, no matter how old your kids get, they're still your kids, right? He had graduated from college. We sent them off to South Dakota to go to, because it was like, for me, it was great because he learned how there are communities that actually support their people, and he did amazingly well. The school, however, ran into financial difficulty, so they shut down. So he came back to California and finished his degree. And the whole time he kept talking about wanting to go into the service. And after he graduated, we pushed back saying, okay, why are you going into the service? Because typically people go into the service, like you said, you want to, travel the world, see things, become a better person. So when he went back, because he was talking about the Army, and everybody, we both come, my husband and I both come from very military backgrounds, family wise. I mean, I think we have between the two families, we have every branch covered. um,
Nice.
so I mean, but he would hear the stories of people, my dad, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, talking about what it was like in the military, and a lot of the stories weren't good, but the feeling of giving back, right, and supporting what the United States was built on, and that was something that was always in him, but we just didn't realize. So luckily, we talked him out of the Army. So he was doing, working for the family business, and he still didn't seem happy until one day he came home and he said, "I've enlisted." It's like, what a shock to a parent. But then he went into the Air Force, and number one, he didn't realize. And I know there's a lot of jokes about each branch about tinfoil hats for the Air Force. They're kind of lazy. Watch the desks where all the real men go into these other
The
branches.
chair force, yeah.
That's
The
right.
chair force.
That's right. But when he went in and he went through boot camp, and he was older, so a lot of the guys are calling him grandpa because he wasn't just fresh out of school. He had 4 or 5 years under his belt. So, but he was running circles around, doing a lot of the PT type things, and he was just a different kid. I mean, he
Did
was
he
just so
actually enlist, or was he commissioned?
No, he enlisted, and
So
he
he
could
had
have
a
gone in as an
college
officer.
degree, and I
Yep.
was going to say your son
Yeah.
actually did it the way that I recommend people to do it. Given all my experience, when people ask me my advice, do I think it's a good idea that my son or daughter insert here? Maybe I should go to the military. I say absolutely, yeah, I think it's a great idea. But if you're going to do it, do ROTC first. Go become an officer, get commissioned, and go to the Air Force. And I say that all the time. My experience is I saw the bonuses the Air Force was getting when I was reenlisting for zero money, and they were reenlisting for six figures tax free overseas. I saw the freedom that they had in the Air Force. It's very much big boy rules. And then also, my sister and brother in law, both higher ranking officers in the Air Force. So I saw how good their life was. They're always on leave, they're not dealing with the same shit that I was dealing with when I
Right.
was active duty. So it truly is my recommendation. And I know, the inter branch rivalry, we talk shit, the chair force, whatever. But I still, to this day, and I mean it, I recommend people go to ROTC. And if you're going to join any branch to have kind of the most fruitful career, I would say go to the Air Force. You're going to just enjoy it more. You're going to see more of the world. You're going to get treated better. You're going to have better living arrangements and just, I think, just overall a better lifestyle.
And not to diminish what the other branches do for us totally, because you need all of that, but it just depends on how your brain works. And for him, he was so much more confident, realizing, wow, I am pretty smart, because you always had that issue growing up because he had a sister that was just like never had to study, just everything came so easy, where he was just like had to study and fight
I'm
for
the same.
grades and
I was
whatnot.
struggling to get a 2.5 so I could play sports. My sister is getting 4.0s without even opening a book, right? Like
Exactly.
it's just not fair. Life's not fair. That's how it goes. Yeah.
And so what do you do with it, right? You don't sit there and woe is me. So yeah, he was doing really, I mean, I never, like I said, I was really happy for him because he never seemed happier, but he was still up to his old tricks of rescuing dogs. I mean, every time he turned around, he brought another dog home. And he just, his love for animals, and we always had dogs for the kids growing up. And again, having an animal teaches you so much more than um, anything else: empathy, responsibility, learning that you can have close friends even if they have fur, right? It's just, and I'm not talking about the furries of today humans, I'm talking
No.
about the
Yeah.
four-legged the
Yeah.
four-legged kind.
Like the golden retriever that's snoozing on my couch right now. That's probably saved my life more times than I care to think about. And I don't even really truly understand it. I just know that for 8 years he's been with me. Actually, 8 years at the end of the month. He turns 8 at the end of the month, and I couldn't imagine life without him. And it's something that's starting to become, because he's a bigger golden. He weighs almost 100 pounds. He's just a big boy. I'm already seeing the joint issues and the struggles of having to put him on the bed because he can't jump up there anymore, having to help him into the car. Even he squats to pee as a male, which is pretty typical of most male dogs, but he even longer pees, he starts to lose the strength in his legs to hold himself up. And it's one of those where I'm starting to have to deal with, like, hey, he's not going to be here forever, and how am I
Yeah.
actually going to handle this? What does he actually mean to me?
And I don't think people realize that. They just, a lot of it just depends on how much interaction you had with a pet growing up, right?
Yeah.
Or what part of the country you're from. Dogs are supposed to be outside. And
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that.
yeah,
I
but
fucking hate people who tie their dog to a tree all fucking day. Don't leave any water for them.
yep,
I fucking hate it. I fucking
yep.
hate it so much.
And rain and cold and all of
Yeah.
that. It's but I've learned, especially in this business, you can't change that. You gotta focus on what you can kind of control. But after my son passed, or before he passed, I should say, a couple like 6 to 8 months before, he had adopted this German Shepherd. And the pup dog had pups on September, and he called me every day, mom, you gotta take one of these puppies. I'm like, we have two Great Danes, and I didn't want to be one of those people that had like 50 dogs, right? I mean, like, there's no way, especially shepherds, because the shepherds are a different breed altogether. And if
They're so neurotic.
and
They're
it,
so neurotic.
and if you don't understand that, you become neurotic, and you
Yeah.
just your whole personality changes because you have this crazy dog. So after he passed, we took one of the pups, and her name is Dusty. We named her after him, being Dustin. So she became the brand face. As with more shepherds than not, We put her through the art training program, and she's amazing. I mean, she picks up stuff off the floor. I mean, I don't need a dog for that, but it was kind of like, okay, if I'm going to train, I need to show that I can do it.
Yep.
Well, shepherds are known for they're very protective. They're very loyal to their person. So my thoughts of having her become a demo dog went down the drain when we were out and about, and some idiot came up into my bubble and she went Cujo on him. So which is typical, which is, if you're looking for a support protective type dog, that's great. But, as a service dog, yeah, that doesn't work. If that's how you trained your dog. So she is now behind the scenes as a demo dog on video eventually, but pictures, things like that. But she cannot go to events where she's our representative because it would make me look like I'm a terrible trainer. But what that story tells people is because that's what a lot of people go, why Stars and Stripes? Stars and Stripes came from my son's military, love of the military. And I wanted to make sure that people knew that was our focus, was the military. Just another funny story. I get calls 2-3 times a week for usually it's older gentlemen looking for, why does my subscription not I'm not getting my newspaper, blah blah blah, but because Stars and Stripe is the military newspaper, so I have a little post-it note next to my desk that has all the information. I said, well, we're actually a dog rescue, but here's a number to call. So it's kind of funny. And when we're out at events, I get that all the time. Where did you know? And it's usually, I would say, VFW guys tend to be the ones that talk about the newspaper. So when we started the program, my goal was, dealing with grief is one of those. And again, coming from farm stock, you learn to compartmentalize things. And so good, bad, and different, you learn to, focus on what's the program, what's the agenda. So not to say that's particularly healthy, but that's just kind of way I'm wired, and my daughter's wired the same way. So you don't really talk about grief. And I mean, we tried some of those groups where you talk to people about, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but it wasn't for me. But you talk to them about how they feel, and when you ask the question, well, how long has your loved one been gone? Like 12 years. I'm like, okay, that's you gotta let it go, right? And then when you have people, oh yeah, my cousin died, and it's like, you have no concept when a parent loses a child, it's probably the worst thing in the world that could happen. So like, what do you do with that? So when I'm working with the vets and they ask, well, you're old lady, how do you know how I'm feeling? So when I tell the story about my emotions dealing with losing a child and then trying to turn it into a purpose, they get it, right? It's kind of like it's not exactly what they're going through, but the fact that, it's more emotional, it's like logical. It's like, okay, I get it. So when I draw analogies to how I'm feeling and how the dogs help, they kind of like soften up a little bit. When I'm working with the vets, I never ask them. It's number one, it's none of my business, but what are they after working with their dogs? What is it they want their dog to help them with? And you find in the beginning, they don't talk much. When I say women more than men will kind of open up after time, but a lot of the guys they just don't want to give you much information. So when I explain the reason why I need to know your triggers, what, emotionally, what it helps me know what we need to teach your dog. And so they nod their heads. And I have one gentleman, he actually moved out of the state, but working with him, he had a cattle dog. And cattle dogs are super intelligent, but they chase cars, they chase squirrels.
They have so much energy. Some of my favorite videos on when I'm just brain rot content is to watch some of these cattle dogs just run these fields and herd these sheep. There's
run
one
over the top of sheep.
Yeah, there's one of these Australian guys who it's every time he like starts his videos where they wake up in the house and his dog is just eager to get on the four-wheeler and go out to the pasture and round up the sheep, and then you could see him as he's getting close to the pasture, he's just like even more anxious.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then he finally gives him the command to let go, and it's like 90-0 that dog's speed of sound to run this whole pasture and go get all these sheep in order. And it's just so cool to watch.
It's crazy. And it's the funny when talking to this guy, he had joined one of the other programs, local programs here, and they said cattle dogs don't make good service dogs. So basically, they didn't want them into the program. And the way I look at things, it's not the dog, it's the person.
Mhm.
So, we offer our services for free, mainly because, trying to get the word out about what we do, but free allows people to kind of like try it out.
Mhm.
Whereas they're not, I have a business background, so I'm like, that's not always the best because it's like if they have no skin in the game, they kind of like, and maybe that's true.
It
But I
is
can
true.
tell
It
you,
is true to an extent. I see
yeah,
it. You've seen it. I know you've seen it. Just
oh
being in
yeah,
business, it really is true. If they don't have skin in the game, then they don't
it's
take it
easy to
as
give up.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah. But then a lot of the especially the men I work with, they don't have a lot of money. So I didn't want it to be an obstacle. And the guy I'm talking about, he was one of those guys, right? He was barely making ends meet, but his dog came first. So we're out walking, and so I was talking to him about what he wanted to get for from his dog. And he says, "Well, first stop chasing cars." Like, okay, well, that's not it's an easy fix once you know how to do it, but it's like the dog. And it's funny because when I would take the dog and I would show them the dog has the capability, they would, it never failed where their jaws would drop. It's like, holy cow. And I go, I'm not trying to throw it in your face, but I'm trying to show you the dog has the potential to do the things that you want it to do. But the difference is you as the human.
Yeah, it's the energy, right? And we see this a lot with. I learned this when I went to, oh God, Operation Red Wings Foundation. I went, God, almost 2 years ago now. I guess really 2 years ago this month. I went out to Texas. I went through their week-long program, and part of that was equine therapy. It's a whole
Mm.
day of going and working with the horses, and that's the first thing that they tell you with the horses is the horses, they sense your energy. So if you're not calm and grounded, the horse isn't going to do anything that you want it to do. And I'm fairly certain, I'm not a dog trainer. I am blessed because Apollo, my golden retriever, was really easy to train. He's also extremely loyal and loves me to death. Like I am dad, like nobody else. I mean, he really doesn't even listen to anybody else but me, right? Like that's just, it was just easy. However, I imagine it's the same thing with dogs. It's, you have to match the energy. You have to be calm. You have to be grounded. You can't lose your patience. You can't get angry or upset because the dog's not doing any, the thing that you want it to do, because they sense that and then they're anxious, and it's just a whole thing. Am I right?
Totally. Working with, and I know I'm trying to always get trainers to kind of come and join our program so we could reach out to more vets. Canine trainers, I love them to death, and nobody does a better job than they do when training dogs. What I found, it's not about the dog, it's about the person. So trying to get canine trainers to be more open and watching the human more than the dog is like climbing up a hill with a big old rock on the back, right? And that's a challenge for a lot of these vets that go to some of these programs that are run by, ex-military. They're dog trainers and they're really good at what they do, but they're very, get a hold of that dog, right? So and that stresses the vet out even more. So guess what? Like you say, the energy goes down that leash. The dog starts acting up because they go, "What's mad? What's the matter, Dad?" And they leave because they just can't get control of the dog. So with us, it's watching the human to see how they're reacting. Um, so one of the things that, in working with this specific guy, I asked him if he played cards, and he
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Well, that's kind of a weird question." And the reason I asked him the question is he had a vein on his neck right about here. And when he was getting stressed, that vein would pop out. It would be like sticking up. Like, I'm like,
Just tell.
yeah. And I just said, you need to take a breath. And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're getting super stressed." He goes, "No, I'm not." I go, Yes, you are." So I explained that to him. So I said, "Take a deep breath." And then we did a couple exercises, and his dog wasn't listening, right? Because he's like, he kept looking up at his owner going, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" So I said, take a deep breath and start telling jokes. And all of a sudden you could see that vein go from sticking out to like non-existent. And as I said, don't play cards because that's how people will know. Making him aware of that. And like he said, I had no idea, but I said, your dog picked up on it before you even realized it. And the more stressed you were getting because the dog wasn't listening. So it's like this big vicious cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, when you're getting like that, so there's a couple exercises we do just to get the vet to kind of calm down a little bit. And the minute they calm down, the dog's like, okay, sit, and the dog listens. So it's kind of like the light comes on for these
Yeah.
guys. So it's like, And some are better at listening than others. So I'm not saying this is an easy thing. It's not, but over time. But anyway, towards the end, before he moved, we had trained the dog enough that he wasn't going after bicycles, anything moving fast, right? Could be cats, cars, but it was consistency. It was like, when I would meet him every week and I go, "Did you do your homework?" He goes, "Well," I go, "I know you haven't because XX," but I was holding him accountable. So after it was about 6 months, after 6 months, because he knew I was holding him accountable, the dog stopped chasing cars. And so after he moved away, I would still keep in touch with him. I know he follows us on Facebook. I was asking him how his dog was doing. And he says, "Well," I'm like, going, just because they learn it, it doesn't mean it stays with them. I mean, it's like even after your dog is trained, you need to keep up with a lot of this stuff. So
Mhm.
it's just one of 100 stories I could tell working with veterans and why this is so important. So when we
Well,
started, go
you
ahead.
have a unique approach to Stars and Stripes, right? You're not one of these service dog training facilities that gets puppies and starts from a puppy. You actually rescue dogs and then turn them into service dogs. I think that's what's really unique about your program, and why I was really excited to bring you on the show to talk about this. Not only because your son served in the Air Force and lost his life, and you shouldn't have to go through that, but what you turned it into in honor of your son. I assume you came up with the idea because your son was bringing home all these foster dogs and all of this, right? Like there's a deep story behind that, and also I love that there's so many, and it goes back to what I think of some humans as dog owners. Like, I don't think dogs should be chained to trees 24/7. Like, why do you have a dog if you're going to just leave it outside? Also, I really hate that people, they don't really consider that when you're getting a dog, it's a lifelong commitment. You can guarantee 15 to 20 years of your life is going into taking care of this dog. It's like having a kid. And so there's so many of these animals that end up in these high kill shelters because people just don't want them anymore. They can't handle the responsibility. They didn't realize what they were getting themselves into. And there's just not enough people like you out there, and some people I've come across who foster 5, 6 dogs and then adopt them. And I just think it's sad. And I'm glad that there's a program, you've created a program that is rescuing these dogs and giving them a second purpose to help some of us who might think that we're quote unquote broken, which is bullshit. We're not broken. We just need new purpose. And so I really like how this all meshes together, saving the dog and the veteran. And it's just kind of a cool story.
Well, and the reason is puppies get adopted. Little dogs get adopted. The dogs that are 50 pounds and up, from the 1.5 to 3 years, they don't, because they've never had any training. They go through adolescence and they're crazy. They jump. They charge. They do all of that. And I wanted those dogs because with some training, they can actually, get over it and become, maybe not service dogs. I mean, not every dog that we have in the program will make it, but they become good companion and emotional support dogs, which 9 times out of 10 serve the same purpose for a lot of veterans, instead of having, that specific task trained dog as a service dog. Um, in fostering, which is what we were trying to do in the beginning, we could not find anybody to foster and follow our program. We had a lot of little old ladies that loved little dogs and wanted to foster that way, and it just wasn't going to work. So then we went, a friend of mine recommended talking to the local prison, and the idea came, and actually I did a lot of research in Southern California. There's several programs that they have big ranches where they have all the dogs, but the dogs will go into these different facilities for a couple months and come out adoptable. So I thought, what a cool idea. And actually, I made some friends down there through my various. I'm part pit bull anyway, so it's just basically nagging the crap out of people trying to get information.
Yeah, that's how it
So,
works.
yeah, it kind of is, and that's why even working with the veterans, it's like it's okay to keep, and I think that's one thing you learn in the military, right? Where it's follow orders, don't question. So when you transition out, that still stays with you. So you're not programmed to ask questions, and you could do it in a polite, assertive way. You can't be obnoxious. You can't start dropping f bombs, but you could be assertive. So we finally got connected out here, and we have a program where we take, and it's usually every 3 to 4 months. we take a pack of dogs, and I say a pack of 6. And the reason why we do the pack is before they go in, it's a 2-week program that the dogs go through where they do play groups. We make sure they all get along. They know each other. So when they go into the prison, because we don't have a facility here in California, trying to start one, it's pretty expensive. Ultimately, if we win, mega millions or whatever, that'll be a different story. But right now it's using the program, and it's like I said, 3 to 4 month program where they're taught from start to finish, obedience, advanced obedience, and then they learn 4 tasks. The dogs that don't make it to the service dog level still learn these tasks. They're 4 tasks for crowd control. So basically it's cover, block, middle, and orbit or circle. So even these dogs that come out as emotional support dogs, when you give the command, they'll start going in a circle. And when you say circle, they'll do circle. And it helps. In theory, it helps the vet when they're in situations where there's tons of people, crowd, or they start feeling anxious. The dog knows to walk around them to get them to the nearest door. Mm-hmm. The downside of that is these dogs come out so well trained that people watch, and they're like, and then they start asking questions. Where did you get that dog? How'd you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And these are all questions that when you're in that state, it's like, get away from me.
Yeah. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone. Exactly. Get the fuck away from me. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so we actually teach escalation for the vets in our veteran handler program, where I like going to the local Hobby Lobbies. And the reason why is there's a ton of old ladies that shop there. Old ladies are the worst when it comes to, all dogs love me, and they come up and they're coochie, coochie, coochie. So teaching the guys, and mostly men right now, we have some women in our Battle Buddy program, but not in the veteran handler program. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But teaching the guys that it's okay. Number one, you're supposed to advocate for your dog. So the thing is, you stand in front of your dog and say, either not friendly or we're training. And if they don't listen, you could basically escalate up to, get the fuck away from me, right?
And I assume these dogs have the traditional vest on that says working, don't touch, that kind of thing. People are so ignorant to that. I see it all the time. I see it everywhere I go. Somebody inevitably, I'm smart enough, like, I absolutely want to go and touch that dog or whatever, but it's definitely working. I can see that it's working. You're not supposed to touch the dog. Like, right. Don't say anything to the dog, leave the dog alone. Inevitably, I'll be in the next aisle over in the store and I'll hear usually it's some older person or some child. And they're like, oh my God, a puppy. I just love it. Yeah, right. Yeah, I get it.
I give kids a pass because they learn through being taught, right?
Right.
But it's the older people, and these days they're not friendly at all. They're very vindictive, and so luckily I've made enough friends at the local hardware stores, and so they know our program, they know what we do. But showing them these guys that you can escalate, you can say be polite, but eventually you're responsible for keeping your dog safe, because the minute your dog feels like you're not safe, they're going to get kind of crazy. And until the dogs get to that point where they are, and there is no certified, legally, there's no certified anything for a service dog, at least from a federal level. And anybody can buy the vest and say this is a service dog, but you can tell dogs that have been through a program and are very well trained versus, Aunt Nell has her dog in her shopping
I see it in the fucking airport all the time. It's fucking annoying to me. It's like, come on.
And there's really not a lot they can do about it until they come up with strict regulations. But the problem with that is then programs like ours, because it's a nonprofit, and you get
convoluted. Yeah.
Not just that, but it gets expensive because you have to have all of these credentials and then licenses for, and it's like, so it's a catch-22. So what we do with our program is the vets need to keep like a log. So it's like when they're out training, they take videos, they send the videos to me. So we track that, so if there's ever a new law that comes into effect, there's data that shows that these dogs have actually been through a program. They get a diploma, but they have the vest, because the vest is more, and again, it's not by law, you don't have to have it, but it's more for the public because that's what the public knows. That's how they've been trained to see the vest. They don't really read for the most part, but
imagine that we don't really read.
No, if it's not like short little words, it's just too much. But then even when you have all that, or you have some of the old ladies that have on their dog, they have the little cute, fancy vests that they made that have like all these little patches. And who's going to sit there and read? It's like a car when you have all those bumper stickers on. The same premise as far as, So we teach our vets to not let people pet their dogs. The reason for that is then there's no question, and they can kind of build up the immunity to people who go, just let me pet your dog, whatever. Down the road, once they're confident, we say, okay, if you want people to pet your dog, teach them a cue or a command to say that the dog is now, you can stop working for a second and go and get pet. And the reason we do that is because the dog, especially, retrievers and labs who love kids and people, they just like, they'll, just get into this like, oh, happy to meet you. It's, they're working. They cannot go to somebody for pets until they're released. So that's kind of why we teach that. So if they want, they have to have a release word to have the dog pet and then go back to work.
It's always cool to me to see a super trained service dog. And it's even without commands, when they're at a certain level, it's like they know when the vest comes out and goes on, I'm working, period, end of story. You can see the whole demeanor of the dog change. Just like when they're done working and the vest comes off, or that command has been given, like you're talking about, and they're released to go and get pets or whatever, the whole demeanor of the dog completely changes from a working dog that is mission focused to a dog that is just a family dog that is just like every other dog. It's
Exactly.
so cool to see.
And it takes a long time, and that's what people don't realize. And to be honest, we have, I would say, 60% fallout for the vets in our veteran handler program. And basically what that program is vets own their own dogs, and then we teach them how to train their own dogs.
So I want to talk about that real quick, because, I think there's a myth out there that, let's use my dog for an example. He's about to turn 8 years old, and, the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. What are the challenges that you see with training? Because you're working with rescues, so you're working with older dogs who may have varying degrees of training. They may know things, they may not know things, they may know more things than other dogs know. How difficult is it to train an older dog these skills?
It's and a lot of it, they might have some trauma that you're not aware of, right? So there's on that variable. Through our prison program, it's much easier because 24/7 those dogs get the same consistent training day in, day out. When veterans are doing their own dogs, it's like, and I try to say, if you're having a bad day, don't do any training, right? Because you want the dog to know that it's fun. I'm learning something. I'm, because dogs need a lot of reassurance. And, when they're doing well, they need to know they're doing well. And when you're having an off day and you're not feeling well, you don't want your dog hanging, you just don't want to do that. And I go, don't teach or spend time training your dog because you can undo everything that you've done the day before. It has to be a happy experience. It has to be something the dog loves to do. We have a lot of games that are incorporated into the training. So basically whatever they're learning to do, we have a game that kind of reiterates that for the dog. So, whether it's when we do a lot of watch me, because you see a lot of dogs, especially service dogs. And that's one of the things that you can tell about a service dog is how often they're looking up at their owner, right? A fully trained service dog will constantly be looking up. And I'm not talking about the canine dogs where you see like the military dogs where they're kind of pacing like this and they're constantly looking up. It's not that extreme, but it's the same premise, right? They're looking at the face of their human to see how, how they're feeling, what's going on, what do I do next? And there's games that the dogs love to play that the human learns to get their dog to watch their face. The dogs coming out of our training, it also works for when you're walking your dog as a companion pet, right? You're walking your dog and all of a sudden there's a squirrel or a cat or another dog, and all of a sudden the dog starts tensing up. So what do? Use your focus, watching, whatever your word is, right?
It's funny you're bringing this up because I took Apollo for a walk this morning and he got a chance to go catch a squirrel, so I just let him go after. He doesn't get to do it very often, and I'm just like, sometimes I just like to let him indulge. So I just unclip the leash and I let him chase the squirrel. He damn near got it too. I was proud of him.
And I know you would have felt bad. He comes back and here's this dead squirrel in his
Well,
mouth.
he's done it before in the backyard. He's caught a rabbit. The rabbits tormented him for several weeks, and he finally one morning, as the sun was coming up, he got one of the rabbits, and he was so proud of himself. But he was also a little kind of shocked, like, I screwed up, Dad. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, dude, like I get it. Like, you're a dog. This is what you do. The rabbits have been tormenting you, and it's a whole story. We won't go into it, but he's caught a rabbit before. The squirrels constantly are screwing with him, and because he's got a fenced-in yard and the trees, all that, he can't ever get to the squirrel. So I just like kind of let him have the moment this morning,
And that's mental stimulation for the dog, and that's what people don't realize is by doing things like that, by playing games with them, using a flirt pole. I mean, there's all kinds of you could do. Mental stimulation tires them out more than a walk. So I mean, that's the thing is people don't realize, but letting them off leash and having a bit of fun, there's nothing wrong with that, because it kind of like takes them back to being a actual dog, right? The roots of being a wolf. It's kind of funny, but it's the veteran program, handler program. It does work. It's just, I think that, and I'm trying to figure it out. And that's why I'm trying to get more veterans on board, and actually on our board to help with the program to figure out, okay, what's the missing piece? And again, we've been around for almost a little over 4 years, and it's not perfect. And I'm no expert, especially when you're dealing with emotional type issues. We have a psychologist that worked with us, and that's where the battle buddy program came in. Why I designed that program was a way to build the community, the support for the veterans, right? They can meet other veterans, their dogs can meet other veteran dogs. And we do it in a park setting. The park setting is what's crucial because it's open space, fresh air, a lot going on for the dogs, but
lots of people probably.
Yeah, people, dogs, smells, you name it. So we do a program where it's 2 hours every Sunday for 4 weeks, and depending on how they get through that, if they want to continue, then we do other types of things. But the program set up where there's an obstacle course, and initially it's really all the jumps are at the ground level, so it's just teaching them to jump, weave poles, tunnels, getting them to look at different things in the environment. And watching the vets, the first day is like always crazy because they don't talk to each other. They're watching their dogs. Their dogs are like, jumping over or running through the thing. It's like, and they don't listen. And you can see the frustration building in the vets. And I'm like, okay, everybody take a break, stop, spin around, just do stupid things. And they think, wow, this is a crazy lady. But the purpose is to get them to refocus, not just the handler.
It's an emotional reset. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So the next session, dogs are starting to like do the obstacle, and then all of a sudden competition comes in, right? For example, we had these 2 women that they're super quiet, but then all of a sudden their dog started doing well, and it became a competition between these 2 vets on, oh my God, Sparky, she's talking to her dog. Did you see that, Sparky? You need to do that. So all of a sudden it became a competition where they're trying to beat the other dog. And I'm like, whoa, ladies, it's not a competition. But all of a sudden they started getting excited because they knew that they were teaching their dog new things. The dog was doing new things. They started talking. And then from the first session to the last session, and especially at the last hour we spend with the psychologist, she kind of talks through breathing exercises and getting them to kind of talk about, and again, not specifics, but in generalities, why you feel the way you do. And we use the dog as the mechanism to get them to see that what they're going through is totally normal. It doesn't make them feel like they're, like you say, there's nothing wrong with you from you could fix this if you take the following steps. And it's not a one size fits all. We throw in, we started this last summer, but aromatherapy. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of research online, and I found that bergamot for veterans, the VA did a study. Actually, it was not through the VA. It was through an outside party that gave the information to the VA about bergamot, that for 2 weeks they did a study where it kind of did every morning for 5 minutes. They would take the bergamot, put it in their hand, and just kind of smell it. And then at night they use a diffuser, right? And they found that the vets who had anxiety, right, that it actually helped them kind of get a hold of themselves and kind of get through the day. So then we
This
use
is so cool that you're bringing this up because I didn't know that this study had been conducted. But
oh,
bergamot, cedarwood, and sandalwood, my shampoos, my soaps, my beard stuff, all of it has one of those three scents to it. And I didn't realize what you're talking about. Like I didn't realize that was a study. I just know I'm very drawn to those three scents, and there's something super calming. And I'll really even take this a step further. I have long hair, and so when the wind blows, sometimes I'll be in a bad mood and my hair will flip in front of my face and I'll catch that scent, and it's just an immediate reset for me. It just something just happens internally, and how can you ignore that, right? So I just continue to use those products that have those scents, and plus they're very natural products, so they're not full of all the chemicals and bullshit that we have here in the United States, of course. But it's really interesting that you're bringing it up because I didn't know that study existed.
Oh yeah, and again, I make a joke of it, saying I know, and especially with the guys, right? I go, I know this is kind of like a foo-foo thing, and you don't want to be one of those bougie men with skin products or whatever. But I go, and it doesn't work for everyone. But I said, at least try it. So when they talk about the wellness kit that we give out with the Battle Buddy program, they get the 2 cents. They get a bandana for their dog because, again, by teaching through the dog, initially they don't realize that we're trying to get to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the dog isn't as anxious, but we go, yeah, your dog might be anxious. So let's put the lilac smell on the bandana, rub it on the dog. And all of a sudden the dog starts calming down. And then they see that and they go, wow. And I go, well, in the bag is bergamot. This is for you. I go, you don't need to put it on a bandana. So, I mean, I make jokes, but in 3 weeks, and then I ask them, who tried it, who didn't. One out of the group have tried it, but they'll talk about how it affected them. So it helps them. The other guys see that, okay, this isn't just some voodoo kind of a thing, right? But I constantly look for things that help veterans because, like we talked about, there's not a one size fits all, and the dog is just another tool, right?
Yep.
If
it's a
they
powerful tool for sure.
It's totally. And then combine it with some of the other ththings, it is a way for them to focus or refocus their brains. Just like dogs, when dogs get excited, what do? You get them to refocus, whether it's you do a little on their neck. And I know some people think it's abuse, but it's like the mama dog, when the pups are little, she uses her teeth to kind of like stop that. Excuse me. It's more of a method to kind of like snap them out of it.
Yep.
And not like you can kind of go up to humans and do that to the side of the neck or whatever. Although you want to, I put a hammer there.
Oftentimes, yes.
But the commonalities, right? It's like, but the more you study it, and the more you add to what our repertoire, our toolbox is, and that's why when I talk to other service dog groups, because I've heard this said about us all the time that we're unorthodox, and I go, unorthodox doesn't necessarily mean a bad. At first, it kind of hurt my feelings because, like, well, but I'm looking at things more big picture, more holistically, right? And it's not just about training the dogs, because the dog training is the easy part. And I've had more than enough vets say, hey, can you train my dog? And then, when it's done being trained, give it to me. Like, okay, that's possible. But guess what? When you do board and train, for example, and this is for people who don't have any emotional issues they're trying to address, they'll get their dog back after the dog being there 6 to 8 weeks, right? And a month later, they're calling the board and train facility saying, my dog is broken. Because guess what? They're not following through with all the training that the dog knew. So it's not the dog, it's the human is wrecking the dog versus not following the protocol. As your dog is trained to do this. So every day you need to do this, and this.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of training that needs to go into the human also. Yep. And I'm with you on that. I never really understood those programs that take these dogs for 6 to 8 weeks without the actual owner that's going to be there. They really only sprinkle the owner in for a couple of weeks at a time, kind of in the beginning, middle, and end. And it's not like through the whole process. So you've missed out on a lot of that training as the human to know how to handle the dog when the dog comes back to you. I get it. That probably works for, some disciplined people in the law enforcement, the drug dogs, the bomb dogs, all of that, right? Where that's your profession. So you are very professional. You know how to handle it. You have the discipline to follow through on the commands and understand it. But I think for a lot of these other, these veterans that are getting these service dogs, I could see where that's a challenge because we're not disciplined enough to follow through with the training when we get the dogs back and all of that. It's why I think your program is so unique. I love everything that you're doing with your program. And as we're coming to the end of time here, what I really want to do is I want to push on what are the needs that Stars and Stripes Dog Rescue needs. How do people find you and sign up to become a part of this program? How do we get you even more funding so that you can grow and scale and reach more people? I want you to just kind of talk about all of those needs that you have so that, it lives here on the internet forever when this episode does come out and people can get to you and really help another wonderful cause that I think a lot of people don't know exists.
Well, the website is starsandstripesdogrescue.org. And there is a donate option. Funding is always a hard thing for us. And I'm good at a lot of things, but when it comes to asking for money, I totally suck at it.
Yeah, I suck at it too.
Yeah. So ask, and trying to find veterans, especially who are interested in wanting to become part of our board. When you message starsandstripesrescue@gmail.com, it comes directly to me because right now I'm kind of like, cook, bottle washer, janitorial. I do it all. Mm-hmm. You can message me and, we can talk more about where you fit in. So we're always looking, and even remote, it doesn't have to be, because right now we're in Northern California. This program can work anywhere. And I know we had talked about this a couple months back, but if there are veterans out there who want to start their own program much like ours, I'm more than happy to share everything I've done as far as our training, how we got into the prison, our prison program, the syllabus, all of that. So
you are a nonprofit, correct?
We are 501c3.
So 501c3, that means I really see a really incredible way forward. This is just, and this will make a lot of sense to you because you're a businesswoman. So like my business hat on, that gives you the freedom to set up chapters all over the country with veterans who truly want to get into this work, who want to find a purpose. I've talked to a lot of vets that want to work with dogs, but they don't want to do the traditional, compete with all the other dog trainers in their local area, this, that, and the third, right? Like it's a tough market. It's a tough market if you want to stand up your own thing. You know that because you've set up Stars and Stripes.
Yep.
But I think this is a unique opportunity for those of you who are listening to this, who love animals, who love dogs, who want to give back to the community, who think that you would be a good fit for this. She's telling you that she can set up a chapter for you in whatever state that you're in and give you all of the entire roadmap for how to make this successful and grow, not only help her grow Stars and Stripes, but also give back to our community. So really hear this when she's saying this, because this is a pretty generous thing where she's already done all the legwork for you and you can kind of step right in and follow the program.
And for the vets who are doing much better in their lives, who have, a lot of extra money at the end of the year, by donating to, because we also do stand downs. We do 3 stand downs in the 3 counties in the Sacramento area where we actually provide dog supplies and vaccines, free vaccines and dog supplies to vets who need that hand up for their dogs. And then, dog food is not cheap. We don't take dog food per se because, everybody has their own brand of dog food, but bringing in the money, any kind of donations, it goes back into the program. Like I said, nobody gets a paycheck. We have a few volunteers, so the 100% of the money goes into either the prison program or the program that we have for the veterans and buying supplies, training materials, mostly dog food, especially at the prison, and then the vaccines that the dogs continue to get. We're also looking for sponsors. If you have a business that you want to be connected to us, we have sponsorship where, for $5,000 a year, I know it seems really expensive, but you basically support a dog for their life. For $5,000, it's vaccines, it's dog food, it's they're every year they go through a retraining, the service dogs, to make sure that they're staying, current with their tasking. So we stay with the vet and their dog for the life of the dog.
And also $5,000 is a tiny investment for you as a business owner because you're going to write that off on your taxes anyway. So it's a way to park some money and not have to pay taxes on it for a good cause. and it's free marketing for you. It's
Yep.
truly free marketing. Yeah, you got to put $5,000 up front. You're going to write it off at the end of the year. It makes your marketing free. And I think it's probably the most powerful form of marketing because it's helping other people, and you're going to be associated with that. So now you become, kind of a humanitarian kind of company effort. You're supporting a good cause. So don't hesitate to donate. And Susan, for you, as somebody who is terrible at asking for money too, stop thinking that $5,000 is a lot of money, because it's not.
Not if you look at the grand scheme of things, totally. So yeah.
So yeah.
But I do appreciate this opportunity, and I hope, the men and women out there who are looking for, like I say, giving back to either their fellow service members and veterans, or finding something they're passionate about. And I can tell you, as hard as this is, and I've worked in the public sector where 40 hours, 80 hours a week. Well, I triple that now, especially, and you know what it's like too, Adam, as far as trying to do all these things for others and get the information out. But it's important. The work that we do is incredibly important, and I just want to reassure people it's not about money for me. It's about honoring my son, and it's about helping veterans, either transitioning service members or veterans who've been out there for a while who don't, they need something, and this is a way to do it. And it's a joke, standing joke for me, but I mean, if dogs had checkbooks, I would not be talking to people. So I mean, that's kind of the, in a nutshell, that's the way it works.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Susan Ames from Stars and Stripes Dog Rescue. Please go to the website, starsandstripesdogrescue.org. If you have it in you, donate some money to this great cause. If you're interested in maybe starting your own chapter somewhere else in the United States because you're on the other side of the country like I am, and you see a need in this, you see that you could be passionate about it and it gives you purpose, please reach out to her. If you're a company that wants to sponsor the entire life of a dog, please do that. Susan, really grateful that we finally made this happen, that you joined me here today. Anything else that I can do in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really appreciate your time today.
And thank you for what you do, Adam. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan Ames from Stars and Stripes Dog Rescue. Please go like, rate, review, share this episode. Please donate to Stars and Stripes Dog Rescue. Please reach out to Susan, and any help that you can give would be amazing. And until next week, we'll see you with another amazing episode. Take care, everybody.